enough.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'm Gerald Tarot Stash. Welcome to Laugh and Learn Human Design with the amazing Jennifer from My Holistic Self. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. I am, of course, Tarot Stash, as you can see on the shirt.
I love it.
And my little tag. And before I forget, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance, really. And also, just saying, because we're talking about mental health, I have included in the description below a whole bunch of organizations across the world that are available to help people who need mental health assistance. So things may change from when this has been published, but I put it up there because asking for help means you're really stronger than you're letting on, and you need to get assistance. So it's powerful to do that. So I am not a mental health professional, nor do I play one on YouTube. I just get to be a nice host and have people on who do things, who do all of the things, right? Is that a fair assessment? Yes, all kinds of things. And so I want to, Jennifer and I have been doing a whole lot of human design stuff. It's been really, really good. And this time, we're talking about human design as it assists us in understanding our mental health.
Yeah.
Recognizing where we are, different strategies that could be helpful. This is something that, again, get somebody who is skilled to be able to help you. So now I've spoken a whole lot, so I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to say, hi, Jen, what do you have to say?
Hi. It's this whole journey has been pretty fascinating in terms of bringing in human design for mental health and well-being. And before we even get into like the HD side of all of this, I just want to take a step back, because mental health is such an important piece of our overall health, and it is not given the attention or the understanding that is necessary for us to really, we talk about moving from surviving to thriving, right? And what does that actually look like? And I think it is such an important distinction, because mental health and wellness, so much of the time it's looked at as just the absence of mental illness, right? Okay, you're not feeling anxiety, you're not feeling depressed, you must be fine, right? But mental wellness is really about our ability to be integrated, right? Mind, body, spirit, connected in holistic health and well-being. And so one of the things that we really want to look at, whether we're using human design or any other kind of tool to help us understand it, is we're not just looking to resolve symptoms. We really are looking to live our best experience, right? And to really be integrated. And what that means is not that everything is always perfect, but we can ride the waves, right? And we know how to ride them in a way that is safe, and that we have the tools that we need to be able to do that.
That's really beautiful. I'm glad you are recognizing that not everything is never always good. Sometimes there are signs when things start to get a little rocky, and then we can be prepared And those, I would say, stay tuned in December. We're doing another Glimmer Globe series. Glimmers are just triggers, but for things that are affirming. And so if I can actually see, if I recognize that something's coming up, that's actually could be a glimmer. It's a positive thing, because now I know, okay, I know I need to do these things to help me be ready.
Yeah. And what's really beautiful with this work is, and this is going to be a really, one of those things that people might go, I don't know about that, Jen, but when we come to a place where we are truly honest with ourselves, we understand the mechanics of what's going on inside of us, even our triggers can become glimmers.
Yes. Yep. Because at that point, it's the integration that we have. So it's like, I'm not a gardener. I pretend to be one. I say I want to be one, but I really don't. But there are gardeners out there who they can actually see, oh, it's time now to, I gotta water these plants again because the ground is looking dry. It's the same thing. It's like, okay. I want to say hello to a few people who are here. We have Tarot Stash. Mods, please watch this one. Sure to be trouble. Ethnicity, hello. Good to see you. Jonathan Daly, thank you for being here. Russ Bob's Barbara.
Hello, Barbara.
Jenny Berlin is here. And yeah, a lot of people are struggling. I agree. And a lot of people struggle without it being visible.
Yeah.
So, that's a key thing. Just because everybody looks fine doesn't always mean. Peter J. Watts is here. Hello, Peter. Afternoon, good folks. Just returned from a wonderful weekend, the Women in Spirituality Conference in Raleigh. Putting everything away right now. Excellent. Thank you. And Coyote is here. Hello. Yes. And never feel ashamed. I can't make you not feel shame, but lean into it. Lean into it and do what you need to. So, enchanting lunal guidance. Hello. Surviving versus living your best life. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Jenny shared, I can feel it when a trigger is coming. Know it's time to ground. Good for you.
Awesome.
Good for you. Janet Lee G is here. Hello.
Hello.
Mental maintenance is challenging sometimes. It is. Stay tuned. I've got something planned toward the second half of October about that. Shh, don't tell me. No. So, Hershey, the shadow reader, is here. Hello. Good to see you, Hershey.
Hello.
Good to see you. All right. So, I know everybody has done their homework and they have gone to Jen's website and printed their charts, their free charts. Are they charts or graphs?
Yeah, you're going to get your body graph, and then you're going to get a whole bunch of information about your body graph. So it's a free tool. Use it. Go on there and
it's really
print it
good.
out.
It's really good. So sorry if I say so myself.
No,
it's really good. Links are,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Links are below, as are the links to our ongoing conversation about human design. So, and I did have, and I did have a little bit of fun. I printed a whole bunch of stuff off. I'm like, ooh, this is great. And then like one for your work. It's like, holy crap. Guess what? I would be a good manager.
Who knew? You
Who knew?
knew.
That's what I did in most of my career. So
You knew that.
yes, but then you get a chart, you get a graph like that, and so this is
You
great.
get your graph, and then I haven't actually printed it out for how many pages of data there is in terms of the information.
Let me tell you,
It prints down like one side because it prints like it is online. So I apologize for that. I don't know how to change that.
it's that much into 5. I downloaded it as a PDF.
Right.
So it is legible. It's easy to read. So
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is a lot of information on there, and if you want to go on, there's one for health, and it looks at a few of the centers that are associated with that. There's one for relationships. When we're talking about mental health, our physical health and relationships are both really important. So learning how we are and what we need to navigate that is all in there.
Yes.
So
okay. People are Hershey has said hello. Janet Lee G says, "Oh, interesting body graph. That sounds helpful. It's very helpful, and the website also allows you to click on the graph or hover on the graph, and it tells you information. And I believe you did that yourself, right?
yeah, I use there's a program I use to build it into the website.
It's great.
But you go in and put in the information and all that you want there. And so
Jonathan still needs to print your chart. I have opted for a drug-free vitamin and nutrient-based wellness plan. I guess that makes me holistic. Sure.
awesome.
And Garnet is
Very
here.
good.
Hello, Garnet.
Hello.
So again, we're talking about human design and mental health.
Yeah.
These things, they're helping us be integrated. So
they really are. I mean, it's really fascinating too, because the whole idea of human design and really kind of understanding it, I'm going to back up.
Sure.
Okay, there's many levels to human design, right? And so when you go back through the videos of things that we've already talked about, we've talked about our aura type, we've talked about our centers, we've talked about authorities, we've looked at kind of the main big themes in human design. And so when we look at those themes in terms of helping our mental well-being, we recognize that one, holding space to be who we are and allowing ourselves to be that really does help to alleviate a lot of the stress, right? That we hold because we think we have to be something that doesn't resonate and doesn't feel correct for us. And so it gives us permission to be who we are. When we understand the way that we are designed to make decisions, our strategy, our authority, it also takes away the mental pressure because we begin to realize that the mind is not making the decision, right? Even, mental projectors, right? You have a process that you go through, but it's not the mind making the decision, right? It still is about, as I'm expressing this, as I'm hearing myself say it, how does it feel?
Yes.
Right? And really learning to honor that. And so when we talk about moving towards inner harmony, which is going to help us begin to thrive, starting with that can be really powerful, right? So each aura type has a not self theme, right? And I think we've talked about this when we did the aura types. So manifestors, it's anger; generators and manifesting generators, it's frustration; projectors, it's bitterness; and reflectors, it's disappointment. Right?
Yes, and that comes up on the little chart too. It actually is like going, my not self is bitterness.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So what happens is every time we feel that, right? I'm a projector too. So bitterness is my I say overarching because just because we are one doesn't mean we don't feel the other things. Like I still get angry,
Correct.
I still get frustrated, I still get disappointed. But my overarching is that bitterness. And when that shows up for me, it's like, okay, I'm not using my energy correctly. And this is a huge sign for me that I need to back up. Right. And it's really easy to go into that bitterness and go, you're not listening. You're not paying attention to what I'm saying. You're not whatever.
It's to lash
Right.
out.
Exactly.
You,
But
you, you, you.
if I can go, oh, I'm in bitterness. This is my not self theme.
Yep.
There's something I'm doing with my energy that isn't appropriate for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's good. That's powerful.
Right. It's really powerful because it allows me to take my power back.
Uh-huh.
Right. And where the mind goes, I have to figure out how to get this person to listen. I have to figure out how to get this person to understand. I have to figure out how to get this person to whatever. It takes all of that mental pressure away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I begin to go, okay, there's something I need to do for me right now.
Yes.
Right. And that becomes my sign. Right. And now every gate is associated with an aura type 2. So let's say you're a generator, but you have projected gates. You're going to feel the bitterness every time something going on with that gate is not using your energy properly,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is where we get into layers of all of this.
Yes. Oh, of course.
But, we talk about, okay, what else is going on in the chart? And there's so much here, guys, that, I actually struggled with like, where do I want to go today with everything? And the first thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was deconditioning and shadow work, because those are both terms within human design that I think are really important. So Ra talks a lot about deconditioning. And what that means is letting go of what's not ours. Okay. So when you look at a body graph, and I could share one, or I can, just kind of hold it up here. When we're defined in the body graph, it means that we have consistent energy in those areas. When we are not defined, it's open. So you're going to see it's white. And I, of course, printed this one and it doesn't have that. So give me a second and I'll pull up a different one here.
Would it help if I showed this?
Yeah, because this one's pretty small.
This one.
Or I can actually share my screen.
How about, will that one work? Because then you can...
Yeah, that works beautifully. So in all of those areas where they're white centers, right? So from the yellow diamond all down, they're either, can you just hold it up a little?
Yep.
There you go. They're all undefined, or the will center there is open, which just means there's no gates defined within it. They're all areas where we're open to conditioning. Okay, so what's really important here is, as we're doing this work, we want to recognize what we're not, because the mind is constantly going to what we're not and trying to fill that gap. So we're good, Gerald. Thank you. Okay. We'll come back to it. Yeah. But, when we look at this idea of who we are and who we are not, we're always the whole body graph. So I don't want to confuse you in that way. Yeah. We all have all of it. But what's defined and not defined really does make a difference in our experience here.
Uh-huh.
And so when we look at the deconditioning, we're going to look at all of these open centers and go, okay, what are the themes that are showing up for me in these centers, and how do I move through them?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas the shadow work is often associated with understanding what is ours. So in those defined centers. So if you go back to the video that we did on each of the centers, I brought in some of the gene keys stuff, and I talked about the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi, which is the enlightened state. Mm-hmm. We did it for each of the centers. And so you begin to go, okay, if I'm operating out of this shadow place, then I have some work to do here. Yes. Right? Okay. And we recognize, deconditioning isn't strictly in our openness, but that's the main place that we find it. So that's what we're talking about. And shadow work isn't strictly in our definition, but that is an important place to start. And I'm saying this in this way because, like I said, there's so many nuances to this. If I were to pull up a shadow chart, it's going to show all of the things that are pulling us, right?
Yes.
And the way that they pull us, because this really impacts our mental health. When we look at the whole idea of, how do I put this? The baggage that we carry.
Yes.
Right? Whether it is from, past experiences, growing up, traumas, whatever it is, we carry so much with us. And sometimes we're not even aware of all of the stuff that we carry. Right?
Yes.
But what happens is we end up filtering all of our experiences through this baggage.
Yes. Well, I like that. Yeah, that's true.
And so if we have no awareness of the filtering that we're doing, we don't understand how we're perpetuating certain issues in our experience. When we're living out of alignment, right? When we don't have that conscious awareness of what's happening, we sabotage ourselves. Right?
Yes.
And so we can look at specific things in our chart, like our Saturn for self-sabotage or our Mars for our immaturity. And we can actually look at the placement of the gates in those areas and see yeah, I see that pattern in my experience. I see when I show up in this way, right? And this is such a beautiful tool because now, instead of going, I'm doing that thing again. What is wrong with me? Why can't I stop doing that thing? We can actually look at it and go, oh, this is in my mechanics. This is something for me to work through this lifetime. I get it. Okay, it is going to keep showing up for me, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's
I know there's comments going through, so if you want to.
There's great comments. Well, and I just want to say, I see, Joanne Miranda is here. Jane the Seeker has joined us, and Hershey's been agreeing with you. I think it's interesting because deconditioning is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's letting go of the things that are not ours.
Yeah.
And the shadow work is understanding that what is ours.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very interesting thing. I like that because we're conditioned to do certain things because we exist. And I think that's really powerful. So thank you for that. Cool.
It's fascinating. And I think I used the example when we were talking about the solar plexus. Because again, we're kind of almost 50-50 divide of people who are defined solar plexus, which is their authority, and people who are not defined. And Ra, when he was talking about the not self and the way that shows up for us, he actually used the example of the solar plexus because he also had an undefined solar plexus.
Okay.
And it was really neat because he's talking about how our openness is what controls our mind, right? Because it's true. Our mind wants to go to what we're not, and it has to fill that gap, right? This is why we obsess over things and why we want things to be a certain way and why we think we have to be something or achieve something or do something in order to be better, to be okay, right? And I use this because it's not true, but this is what the mind does. The thing with openness is when we're open, if we're trying to fill that openness with our not self mind, instead of going into the genius of that openness, because it is a place where we hold our genius, we go into the conditioned part of it and we distort it horribly, right? And so what ends up happening is this distortion impacts the foundation of how we're thinking.
Yes.
Right? So going back to Ra's example of this, because I thought it was really good, and it hit the spot. So, like, I also have an open solar plexus, undefined actually, and I feel this, and I've worked
Okay.
really hard with this, but I still feel it, and to be aware of it has made all of the difference.
Okay.
And so what happens is the not self strategy with an open solar plexus is to avoid confrontation and truth.
To avoid confrontation and truth.
Hmm. So the
Wow.
example that he gave is, okay, so here you are, and you're not really caught up in anything. And I noticed this with myself. Like, if I'm just in my own space doing my own thing, there's not a whole lot of emotion rolling around in there. I'm
Sure.
pretty like even keel in my own energy. Phone rings, right? And you see who's calling, and you know, oh, that is not going to be an easy call.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Open solar plexus immediate response is, I'm not taking that.
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
And so what ends up happening is we go, okay, if this could get ugly, if this isn't pleasant, I don't want to even go there. I don't want to deal with it. Right? And Ra goes like, he actually says, how did he put it? Like, no, we don't want to deal with the confrontation. So let's lie. I'm busy. I'm out of town. I'm dead. I don't want to deal with it.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Okay.
And that was his quote. And I thought it was so apropos because, obviously we're not going to go to the I'm dead part, but sometimes we want to. It's like, I just
Just want to
don't even
avoid
want
it
to
at all costs.
exist
Yes.
in
Yes.
this reality where I'm going to have this conversation, right? Or deal
Mhm.
with this thing. And it can be that extreme in our desire to avoid confrontation,
Mhm.
right? And so whenever we're in our not self of a particular center, but in this case, this center, we find ourselves afraid of living our truth because we don't want to confront things. We don't want to have to deal with them,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Now, as an open solar plexus, you put me in a room full of defined solar plexus centers. Okay. The rest of my family is defined solar plexus centers.
Mm. Okay.
The emotional energy that pours into me from their defined solar plexus becomes amplified,
Oh,
right? So
okay.
if they're stressed, I feel it.
You
Like,
feel
I
it.
will shake with their stress. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, what is happening? Right? And we have to begin to realize, like, we don't just take on those feelings from others, we crank that volume right up.
Right.
Right? So you think of a subwoofer, right? You're going to amplify it to the point of distortion, right?
Yes.
If you are not aware of what's happening, this happens, and all of a sudden, you're 10 times more angry than they are. You're 10 times more frustrated than they are,
Mm.
right? Like, you're just taking it and amplifying it so much, and you think that that's you, right? But it's not. And this is the part of being able to really recognize what's happening,
Yes.
because the moment that we can recognize it, if we can take a step back, breathe, find that pause, right? That open solar plexus has the ability to read the other people's emotional waves,
Yes.
right?
So it's
And
a
to
flip.
really,
Yeah. Instead of
Mhm.
just experiencing, it's reading. And correct me if I'm wrong, then it gives me the ability to approach them in a way that is mutually beneficial or helpful for them to do
Exactly.
some de-escalation. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I
Um,
find, when I'm able to make that separation, we can come to resolution really quickly. When I'm not, and I go into it and I ride that wave with them, we're butting heads, right? And
yeah.
there's fighting. And
Yes.
so we really need to spend the time working with ourselves to notice it when it's coming up for us.
Yes. Jane the Seeker a little earlier said, we just blew her mind. So, and Nalani said, you do things, you keep bumping into it until you deal with it.
Mhm.
oftentimes.
Yeah.
And she was also talking about the solar plexus and, we amplify. Is that because we're empaths?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I want to be mindful here. Defined solar plexus can also be empathic.
Yeah, I was just going to say empath and defined or undefined solar plexus are two different things. I would imagine it turns the volume up if you're an empath.
Yeah. But if you're empathic, it does definitely turn the volume up. And it really means that you have to spend the time doing the work. Sorry. I don't know if you're hearing this.
We all love the dogs. Yes.
But one of the experiences that I like to use is going to the mall, right? Because or going to a shopping center, right? You go out somewhere, you're fine, you're good. Some people are fine and good until they're like halfway into the store. And then all of a sudden they start feeling other things, right? And they're not feeling so great.
Yes.
I will pull into a parking lot and go, not today, and turn around and leave.
Okay.
Right? And so we just have to be aware of what our sensitivity level is. Right? And part of that learning is practicing it. Right?
Yes.
Like I would go in and go, okay, all of a sudden I just shifted from calm to angry. What's happening? Because it's not me. Nothing happened.
Yes.
The celery didn't bite me. I'm okay. Right? And so it's like, okay, interesting. I'm just noticing. Right? And then I might pass, somebody who's yelling at their kid because of something or other. I'm like, okay, got it. I'll keep going. Right? I get to another aisle and I'm sad. And I'm like, what happened? Right? Cereal isn't that, depressing.
Except when they don't have the one you want.
What do you mean you took the toys out now? Yeah. But again, you notice it and you practice paying attention to the shifts that are happening and how it feels and the waves and noticing them, because when we're defined, we have a wave, right, that we operate from. Okay. And so defined solar plexus is gonna, if you're paying attention and if you're noticing, you're gonna actually see that you have a wave that you generally ride, and it's normally kind of the same emotional wave. Mm-hmm. With the undefined solar plexus, we're riding everybody else's wave. So it's changing, right? Depending on who we're with and what's going on. And so we have to really learn how to determine what wave we're riding, yes, so that we can step out of it. Right?
That's really important. And yeah. So yeah. Janet Lee G said, ooh, subwoofer distortion, light bulb moment. So that made a lot of sense for Janet.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, no, and this whole emotional piece is a really important one too, because, and I'm going to say this with a caveat, again, like, see your doctor, do what you need to do. But we live in a time where the go-to is to just medicate.
Yes.
Right? If we're not okay, we just medicate it.
Right.
But could you imagine if people understood what was really going on in the mechanics of the emotions, and they were able to learn how to navigate it, the difference that would make for them?
That would be incredible. And even the dogs agree.
I know, right? They're getting excited over here about it.
Yeah.
And the problem is that with some medication, it numbs. Right? And now we don't have the ability to really pay attention to what's happening on the same level. And so, not saying not to do that, like, obviously do what you need to do and what is going to help you. But know that if, let's say, you are on something that does kind of numb the emotions, notice, am I defined? Am I undefined? And then while I'm doing that, can I begin to observe myself and hold space for allowing myself to tap into these different things that are happening happening. Because
Yes.
as I'm healing it, that might actually change how I show up with it, which might change what I need around it.
Yes. Well, and I'm a big believer in a holistic approach. Medication, can be very, very helpful to help people get on the right track, the appropriate track.
Yeah.
And, let's face it, without antibiotics, a lot of us wouldn't be here.
Yeah, most definitely. And sometimes it's so intense, we need that in order to just be in a place where we can begin to feel it. Right. So I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch.
No, but
I'm
it's
just
part of
saying be aware of what's going on for you, whether you're on them or not. If they are numbing, if they are dulling, being able to really, recognize what's happening. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to bring him.
It's okay. Yeah. Nalani was like I numbed my emotions with antidepressants and ADHD meds for over 20 years. And Janet Lee G said, yes, I agree. We are also need all of the tools and skills we can get to also assist in navigating. It's very important. The importance of, Nalani was saying that, numbing emotions for a number of years with medications. Janet Lee is talking about you need the tools and the skills. I agree. I think what you're saying is really very important because, if there's this idea well, I'm burying my anger. Well, you can't just bury anger. You bury other emotions as well.
Yeah.
Whether that be medication, different things. So, and I think, going back to what you said, this idea of is what would it be like if we understood our our natural, our conditioning, the deconditioning, and our own alignments. It would be the world would be a very different place.
It would be. I mean, you think about even just, we're talking about the very basics of the chart, right? But part of human design also gets into, so on the human design chart, Gerald, if you show yours, that would be helpful. So you can see down either side, you've got the black squares and the red squares. And so they talk about the gate that is each planet, like where it was. And we look at what the planets represent, and we actually can see other things that are really important for us to look at. Thanks, Gerald. It's good.
Yep.
In terms of what's going on for us, right? And like I said earlier, you want to look at your Mars and go, okay, what is going on here? Because my Mars is my core wounding, right? And so if I can understand what's happening in that gate, I'm going to actually learn what I need to do to be able to work through that, right? We talk about, I want to heal, generational and ancestral, like wounding. Well, our design Mars is going to tell us exactly where to look to be able to do that work.
Yeah.
Right? We want to look at our sabotage patterns. So we're going to look at our Jupiter. Right? What is happening? Our Saturn. We're going to go, what is happening here? Right? What is showing up for me? And, I keep doing this thing. Why do I keep doing it? Right? And we go, oh, I see what I'm doing. I get it now. Right? We look at our stress responses. That's in our chart too. Right? How do I respond to stress, and what tools do I need in order to be able to respond to my stress in a way that actually is going to help me? Right? Because depending on what's going on in our root center, where it's our root center and our head center are our pressure centers, right? And our root center is that pressure to grow and evolve. And so that pressure shows up for us in different ways. And depending on what's going on there and what's defined there, we're going to look at that and go, oh, okay, I need to chill. No, I need to exercise. No, I need to, right? And we can look at it and actually go, this is the best way for you to work through your stress response and
Yes.
figure out what it is that is going to resonate for you to be able to calm mind, body, right? And connect with spirit,
Yeah.
you know? So there is a lot there. We talk about, the earth and sun, which are the top two on both sides. That's our incarnation cross, right? That's our purpose, right? And so much, of our time is like figuring out, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing?
Mhm.
Right? But our nodes are really our roadmap. So the north and south nodes. And it's such a fascinating thing, because our nodes also connect to the personal health system in human design. So what environment is correct for me to be operating in? How does my mind actually work? What is the best way for me, to be seen and to see what I need to do? How am I going to really follow my strategy and authority? Well, if I'm not in the right environment for me, I'm going to have a really hard time following that.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, when we look at all of the nuances of what is in here, it's important. Our determination is going to talk about how we digest, right?
Mhm.
Food and information.
Yeah.
I know that I digest best in a low setting, which means that I don't do well in loud restaurants. I don't do well like going out to eat in places,
Mhm.
because if it's loud, I can't digest,
Interesting. Okay.
right? Some people, it's about food, some it's about environment, right? But that's all there in your chart.
Okay. Janet has asked, I do not know. This is in our charts. My stress response nearly killed me. Survival mode can mess you up big time. This is
Mhm.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we spend, time in that activated state, it shifts the whole physiology of our
Oh,
body,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And so being able to recognize what we need to do to shift that is incredibly valuable. We talk about, even just, diet for health and things like that. That's all in there. The main, channels, they call them formatting channels, and they're right here between the root and the sacral, right?
Mhm.
The energy in those channels actually is where we find depression in the chart,
Hmm.
right? And so we can look at that and go, okay, what is showing up for me, right? I might say, like, you know, you're going through something and you're like, it always shows up for me like this. And we might look at your chart and go, oh, that's right there in this gate.
Okay.
Right? Because when we know what the energy of that is, we begin to understand the mechanics of it, right? And so I find this is such a valuable thing for me, and for people that I've worked with as well, because let's say, let's say you have gate 52, but you don't have gate 9. Okay. So I'm
Okay.
just picking, one of the sets here. It's just the one on the end there. And so the channel here is about the channel of concentration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have 52, which is the gate of stillness. Right. So here you are, and you're, trying to concentrate, trying to get stuff done. But without the gate 9, which is the sacral response to actually act on it, right? The gate of focus, it's going to be really hard to,
Interesting.
to focus on the details and to
Uh-huh.
concentrate, right? And then we might go, this sucks. Like, why can't I ever, just do this? Why can't
Sure.
I
Sure.
focus? Why can't, and what ends up happening is, you know, 9 transit will come along, or somebody who has the 9 will come into our experience, and all of a sudden we're focused, we're getting it done, everything is going great, and then the transit passes, or the person is not in our experience anymore, and we can't do it again. And then instead of going, oh, okay, that was just, I had that connection, I had that energy, I was good to go then, I'm going to have to wait until that comes back, we beat ourselves up and go, well, I did it before, why can't I do it now?
Yeah. What's wrong with me?
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong, right? In that moment, if we could look at that and go, okay, it's just mechanics. I get it. I get it.
I think that's a really important thing. It's just mechanics. Now, do mechanics, I don't think, I'm a big supporter of, I always get frustrated when people blame things like Mercury retrograde or, oh, that's just how I am. Well, that may be just how you are, but when you know that that's how you are, you can still make choices.
One of the things that Ra talks about, and this is, I love this, and it's very much in line with like Yogananda and a lot of what he says, and so many other teachings, is the idea of, picture this as a stage, okay? All of these characteristics, all of these traits, all of these things that we're working through are kind of like the background characters, right? They have characteristics and we notice them, but they don't really have any particular role, right? The magnetic monopole, which is our self, right? It's that higher self. That part of us is what is supposed to be taking the lead. And that part of us is not, it doesn't have to be subject to the mechanics, right? But we have to understand them. We have to be able to identify them, and we have to be able to know what they do and how they pull us in order to not have them take control.
Exactly.
Right? So, yes. Until we do that work, they're running the show. Right? But as we do that work, we're able to go, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. Got it. I don't have to go there, right? And this is the work of actually transcending these systems.
Yes. So, Jonathan asked a question. What happens when you have gate 9, but not 52?
Yeah. So with that, it's the opposite, right? So without the gate 52, you might feel like it's really hard to sit still long enough to concentrate or long enough to get anything done.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Sure.
So if you've got the gate 9 and not the 52, I would guess maybe you find like doodling might help you concentrate, right? If you're learning, because it's something that you can put that energy towards, because the 9 center, it's the energy, right? It's the sacral center. It has to process that energy. It has to be able to move. And so if you really want to concentrate on something, your sacral is telling you, yeah, I want to do this thing. But you're really having a hard time concentrating or sitting still long enough to concentrate. Notice that, right? And go, okay, without the 52, I really don't have the ability to sit still.
Sure.
Right? That's okay. What do I need to do to help myself sit still?
Yes. That's
Right?
It's when you have information about what's going on, then you can address with something that works for you, and what works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So, yeah. Okay, so we've been talking for almost an hour, and Jonathan said, my notes from school are covered in doodles. Yep.
There you go.
There you go. We have evidence. So when someone gets their body graph and their information from your website, thinking about mental health, as they read through this, what are the key things that could be helpful for them to pay attention to? Because this is set up. It's got your aura type, your strategy, your authority, your definition, your profile, and incarnation cross, and your signature. Your not self theme, which we learned earlier is an important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Digestion, senses, and design sense, motivation, perspective, environment, channels. That's a lot of information.
There's a lot of information there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm saying about the layers of it. And this is why, having a reading is really valuable, because we can focus in on what it is you're actually dealing with. With just that, though, you still have so much. So what you want to look at is, like Gerald said, you can hover over and it'll tell you a little bit about each center. Take some time and look at your undefined centers, right? Because they're your teachers, right? Ra talks about the defined as the student and the undefined as school, right? They're places that we're here to learn, but they're places where we can really come into our genius. And so you're going to look at that and go, okay, what is going on here? I have an open head, right? Or an undefined head. Okay, what do I want to, what does that mean for me? And so we look at not self theme. Okay, the not self theme of an open head center is, this idea of being distracted, right? Being overwhelmed with questions that don't matter. I think Ra talks about, I think it's like 70% of the population has an undefined head center. 70% of the world's population is constantly thinking about things that don't matter to them, right? But the mind gets excited and gets caught up in it and goes, oh, this matters. This is fun. I want to talk. I want to think about this. Or it's, I have to resolve this. I really have to get this out of, I need to figure out an answer to this in order to be okay. Yes. And it's like, well, actually, do you? Like, does this really matter in this moment? Right? And a lot of times if we break it down, it doesn't. Right? There are things that we do have to deal with, and there are things that we do have to work on. But that pressure, right, is really, really overwhelming, and it can be. Now, let's say you have a hanging gate in that center, right? That hanging gate is now going to put all that pressure into the energy of that gate.
Sure.
Right? And the gate that's across from it. So, let's say it's the 64, then the 47 in the ajna is going to be overactive as well, even though we don't have it, because again, the mind wants that other side. Now, we look at this and go, okay, what does this mean, right? In all of this, if you're able to look at it and figure out exactly where that pressure is coming from, like, do I need to understand? Do I need to know? Do I need to, be able to figure it all out? Oh, okay. This is the pressure that I'm feeling. It doesn't mean I actually have to do anything with this pressure. Right? Because in that moment of recognizing it's just pressure, that's it. I'm just feeling pressure here. I don't actually have to resolve this pressure right here, right now. Okay, I can take a breath. It's okay. This pressure is going to be here. That's the reality of my design. I'm going to feel this pressure, right? But what actually matters to me in this moment, right? And this is where, we look at it and go, okay, are these intrusive thoughts, right? Am I spiraling? Am I getting into, a nervous system response, autonomic nervous system's kicking in, I'm going into fight or flight, or maybe I'm going into dorsal and I'm getting depressed, right? Like, that observing piece and seeing our pattern in it can be really helpful in going, I get it. I don't have to do anything with this. I just have to notice it.
That's really powerful, because I love this idea of understanding the pressure. It's just like, I have to notice that pressure is there. And I don't have to do anything with it. There are times when I notice something and I have to deal with it because that's life. But there's this beauty in that. I think when we understand something, there's a lot of enlightenment that comes with, I see you, you're not mine. Got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it can help inform us with what we do with it. If we do anything with it.
Yeah, which we may not. But I mean, you think about, people who talk about codependency, holding on to things that aren't healthy for them. What's going on in that spleen center, right? We want to take a look at that because the spleen, especially undefined spleen, really struggles to know what's good for them and to let go of things that are not good for them.
Yeah.
Right. And yet when an undefined spleen is operating properly, it's really clear on what's healthy and what isn't, but it's not consistent. And then this is the piece, right? It's like, okay, well, I knew then, why don't I know now? Right. There's this whole kind of energy around it. And the mind is constantly trying to judge all of it. Right. But if we take a step back and go, it's okay. Right. I have this undefined spleen. When I'm meant to know, following my strategy and authority, I'm going to have the correct answer and I'm going to feel what is correct for me.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say you have a defined solar plexus and an undefined spleen. You're not going to know in the moment. There is no truth in the now. I got to ride that emotional wave. Right. And so you ride that emotional wave, and maybe at the end of that emotional wave, you go, okay, this isn't good for me. Right? I've got clarity. I know what I need to do. But that undefined spleen is going, yeah, but I don't know if I'm safe if I let go, because even though this doesn't feel good, it's, it's familiar and I understand how to navigate it and I don't know. And right. Because that lack of definition is causing us to struggle with it. So we just notice it.
Yeah. Janet Lee G said, I so love this, Jennifer. I do see a lot of the links in the description and will be plugging in for sure. I want to find my genius and transcend some of my stuff.
Love
it.
Good.
That's
Love
powerful.
it.
Hi, Delphi. Thanks for joining. Jonathan
Hey,
has put in the in links.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you. So there. So I think a big thing, and I want people to have a takeaway I encourage people to go and print their body graph and the information, because it's just a little bit of information, and a little bit of information, especially if you sit with it and you think about it and you try to apply it, can be very empowering.
Oh, so much so.
So
I mean, just looking again at your strategy and authority based on your aura type, knowing what your not self theme is, just that alone can help you start to do this work. Right?
Yeah.
Then you begin to understand, okay, my open centers versus my defined centers. You know what? I can see I have an open G center, and I am obsessed with figuring out what my, direction and love is. Okay, right? I don't know who I am and it drives me crazy. It's like, it's okay. You're meant to merge and adapt and all of that. Right? And so then we begin to give ourselves permission to just be as we're designed, and all of a sudden we're not fighting it anymore. And we get to pay attention to that. How does that feel? What's going on for me? Right? Then we start to look at the gates. Gates in the spleen, the ajna, and the solar plexus are fear gates. How is fear showing up for me? Right? What fears are activated? What hanging gates do I have that move towards those fear gates? Right? We begin to really notice what comes up for us. Yes. Oh, I get it. That is a fear that I have, right? I have the 16. I don't have the 48. I believe the 48 is the one for inadequacy, right? I always feel like it's not enough. I have to do more. Thus the, overachiever card, right? I notice that and go, okay, I am enough. It is okay, right? And I work on that for myself. And so we give ourselves permission and go, I see where this is coming from. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me.
Right. There's nothing
Right?
wrong with people.
No. And so much of mental illness, when we look at it, is there's something wrong with you. There's something you have to change about yourself. There's something that's not correct within you. And it's like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
We are absolutely beautiful and perfectly imperfect. And I love that I have all of these things within me. And the only way that I can love that is by accepting it and embracing it and going, yeah, you know what? I do struggle with that. And that's okay. I'm a work in progress. It's all good.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And there's going to be days where I rock it and there's going to be days where I don't. And that's okay.
Yes, it is okay. And that's, I think that's a really important thing. It's okay. Keep showing up. Keep showing up every day. It is okay. That's so powerful. And I do love that. It's just, okay, what is, that deconditioning? What's not mine? That's a big thing. Obviously, that's a thing for me, obviously. So but I think it's an important thing because, and then being able to do the work to understand what is mine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, what's mine and what's not mine? Yeah, that explains so much. I have 48, but not 16.
Yeah. So you've got the ability to navigate all of that and know what's going on, but the 16 is in the throat. So maybe not the ability to express it all the time.
Yep. Progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
So Jenn, let me ask you this. And this is, of course, Jenn from My Holistic Tarot. No, My Holistic Tarot.
My Holistic Self.
My Holistic Tarot. Sorry, My Holistic Self.
I mean,
Yeah, coming soon. All of your links are below. Where do we go from here? What's the next step with this, do you think?
Well, if you haven't done it yet, get your chart and play with it, experiment with it, right? Ra talks about human design as an experiment. That's what it is, right? We want to experiment with it. Mm-hmm. If there's something that you want to dive into, reach out. If there's something that you want us to do a laugh and learn about, let Gerald know. I'm open.
Leave it in a comment. Yes.
And we can do that. If you want to dive into the centers, we can do that. If you want to talk about gates of melancholy, we can look at that. Fear gates, we can look at that. Right? You want to dive into trauma responses inside of different things, we can look at that. You want to look at, there's a lot of different places we could go. We can look at our purpose and incarnation cross, which means that we have to look at the nodes, which means that we have to get into some of the personal health system when we're talking about environments and things like that. So again, there's a lot of information here. Don't overwhelm yourself with all of it. Start simple. If you're already really familiar with your aura type, your strategy and authority, and you've been working with that for a little while, start looking at the centers, right? And see what's going on there. Look at what the conditioning is. Look at what the not self themes in the centers are. I am working on another graph that will be for sale for this one because I'm already at 244 pages. But it will be it won't be that long when you get it, but it'll be very personalized. I'm going into every center, all the circuitry, all of the gates. Like it's going to be pretty intensive. But the idea behind that is not meant for you to read start to finish and then just go, okay, cool, that was a lot of information. It's really meant for you to spend time with, right? And play with it and experiment with it and see how different things feel. Does this resonate for me? Does it not? What's really, happening? You might read through your center, which actually the one online right now, I think it's just $5. It'll go through all of the centers, right? To be able to just sit with that and go, okay, this center is defined for me. What does that mean? What's that? How does that show up? Right? The center is undefined for me. What's going on there? What do I need to pay attention to?
Yeah. It's so fascinating. Well, this has been incredible, as it always is, in spending time with Jennifer from My Holistic Self, and who is also the co-host of Twillo Talk, which is every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
So,
Authentic spiritual conversation.
Which are,
and we talk about the transits.
Yes, and you do talk about the transits. So that's
right.
powerful.
So it is. If you have your chart and you know your chart, and we talk about a transit, and the transit that's coming in actually connects a channel for you, your energy during that time is going to shift. And that's a really valuable thing to know.
Yeah, that's incredible. What else do you have coming up that you want to let people know about? Switching gears, obviously.
Switching gears. Yeah, Twillo Talk on the Mondays is really what I've got going on right now. I know Tanis and I just started a class on spiritual warriorship. We've already done one class. We're going to be moving into the second. So it's not too late to jump in if you want to. So you can always reach out and ask about that. And that we're going to actually do some human design in that as well.
Oh, great.
As well as a whole lot of other stuff.
Sure.
Right. And so it's really about, it's called Peacekeepers of the Light, and it's a spiritual warriorship program. Right. And so it's pretty intensive. It's a 2-year program. Like I said, we're only, this Saturday will be our second class. So it's still good to go if you want to hop on in. We record the classes. Beautiful. And I think that's it. We just did the October reading and put that out for the beginning of the month, and that's on Twillo Lifestyle's membership page, which is free. So you can go on there and get a 22-card reading if you want for the month. I think that's pretty much everything I got going on at the moment.
So, and I would encourage everybody to like and subscribe to all of our channels, because you will find out what's going on. And as soon as we're done here, Jen and I are going to talk about when we get to see each other next and do another Laugh and Learn. So I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so very much. And take care. Bye.